Da, da, da. Hey everybody, come on in here. Come on, gather around, and I hope you have your beverage. I've already had my coffee. I'm a little late today, so I'm starting with OJ, but whatever beverage you have, it's just as good. Everybody, grab your beverage. Simultaneous sip. That's good, OJ. So, you may have seen the news that there's a new accuser of President Trump. We have a Playboy playmate who claims she had a long affair with Trump in 2006. Now, I know that the critics of the president are taking their best shot. And I think the persuasion that they're trying to use with this, the story of Stormy Daniels and now this playmate, is that our president is far more virile than we expected. You may have thought he was a player, but apparently he was even more than we thought. Now, he's protected somewhat by the fact that he never claimed to be a moral standard. So at no point in the process did candidate Trump and then later President Trump say, hey, I'm a good role model. All you kids be like me. Indeed, he said the opposite. He said, I'm no angel. Those were his exact words. And he was certainly aware that his past would follow him, etc. So I don't think his critics quite understand that these attacks that involve him having affairs with attractive women is hurting him quite the way they hope it will. It feels like they have a playbook that has a chapter of all the things you shouldn't do to take down an enemy, and they're only working from that one chapter. It's like, all right, let's accuse him of being really successful with attractive women. Huh? That's going to work. Now, I'm not condoning anything he's done. Remember, he said he's no angel. There's, our starting point here is that society does not approve of these personal behaviors. But as a political attack, it kind of only works if the person you're attacking had made a big deal about fidelity or marriage or, or anything. Candidate Trump never made that mistake. He never said, I'm your role model. Look at me, I'm your role model. Never said it. And that was one of the smartest things he did. So again, it's sort of like, it's sort of like the dog that didn't bark. I like to use this way too much. But part of his persuasion is what he didn't do. So the biggest part of your persuasion is what you do. But knowing what not to do is a pretty big part of persuasion. And he knew not to put himself in a trap where they would be saying, imagine the headlines if he had. It'd be like, Trump claims that, he's the paragon of virtue, and yet we found these cases. Never did that. So every time they find a case, all it does is go toward, let me back up a little bit. I was watching a clip yesterday with George Lakoff. He was talking to, it doesn't matter. But anyway, he was talking about Trump's persuasion, his packaging, his sort of Republican role. To use his words, was strong father. So he describes all of the sort of conservative views that Trump represents at the moment as being the strong father model. And the trouble is that when you're watching sort of this strong father thing, that doesn't mean necessarily that he's following all the rules. Strong father means literally, how you feel about them as as a powerful alpha character. And in this case, the more allegations they have about his sexual exploits, it doesn't really hurt his image. It just doesn't. It might actually help it, because whatever you thought about him, you're thinking, well, he certainly is a bastard, but he sure knows how to get what he wants. And remember, the very thing that he offered the country, like it or not, was that he offered the country that he would be as effective for the country as he has been at getting stuff for himself. So every time they show an example where he successfully got something for himself, they're sort of playing into his proposition. His proposition is, look how good I was at getting stuff for myself. If you ever wanted somebody who could get stuff for himself, look at me. I got money. I got all these women. I got big buildings. I got a good family. Look at all the stuff I can get for myself. And if you elect me, I'll help you get stuff too. So I'm not sure that's hurting him as much as his critics expect. It's time for Dale. President Trump is a terrible leader because in the past he had sex with beautiful women. How could we have a leader of the country who has also had coitus with beautiful women? And scene. All right, let's talk about those companies that are destroying our mental health. Changing topics here a little bit, if you take collectively all of the digital companies from, Google to Apple to the social media companies, and what they're doing to our mental health with their digital addiction, and what that does to just, a human being, and you combine that with access to legal pharmaceuticals and even worse, the opioids that are used illegally, those three things are creating a mental health problem that is fairly unprecedented. You could probably throw in porn. Yeah, I think you could throw in porn. And that's sort of a digital addiction as well. But it does seem to me that the country's mental health is being ripped apart. But here's the hard part. The mental health is being ripped apart by the very same companies that control our access to information. So if the people who control your news, in other words, they're the advertisers on the news, so they do control its content indirectly, they can keep you from realizing the real source of your problems. Now, the catch is that the pharmaceuticals are really good for a lot of people. So a lot of people are apparently being helped. And you don't want to take that away. But I don't think we should be blind to the death toll. So it seems to me that whenever we have a mass shooting or something like that, we should keep a running tally of which pharmaceutical company is a contributor to which killers. So we'd at least have the information. It could be that there's one pharmaceutical company that, far and away is creating the drugs that are in the most killers. Now, that you have to watch out for cause and effect, because people who have mental problems take these drugs. But I think over time you could sort it out. I think our statisticians could figure that out. Ridiculous, somebody says, without giving an answer or a reason. Boom. Yeah, it's really tough to know when the drug is causing the suicidal urge and when it's just a person who has suicidal urges who is more likely to take the drugs. It's hard to sort that out. But I think we should at least have the information. You know, we should not run away from a full picture of the problem. Now, I've seen as part of this gun control conversation that's going on now, I see people referring to the Swiss situation with guns, and I've also made reference to it. And then people pointed out, wait, you can't control us to the Swiss, even though the Swiss have high gun ownership and low crime. That doesn't mean what you think it means, because although they have, you know, I guess it's mandated that many of them or most of them have a gun in the house, the government doesn't give them ammunition. So the ammunition is kept in the central place, but the guns are in the house. Now, I asked myself, suppose we had a situation like that in the United States, and we never would, but how long would it take for someone who had bad intentions to get ammunition? How hard is it to get bullets? I would think that, you know, of all the things that would be easy to get, would be bullets. They're not very big. Not true. They have ammo. Army guys don't have in-house. Oh, so you're talking about the people who have military weapons from the military don't have bullets from the military. But it's sounding like some of you were saying that if they have their own guns, of course they can have ammo. That's probably true. Bullets would be the new Bitcoin. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it sounded very smart. All right, I'll be recording. I'm not sure if I'm live or recording at 9:30 on Bill Mitchell's show. So if any of you watch that, be sure to catch me. Scott leaves a lot of stuff out. What am I leaving out? Scott, are you a gun dealer? That's a weird question. So I'll be on Bill Mitchell's Periscope pretty soon, in half an hour. 3D printing will solve some issues. Yeah, I suppose we'll be 3D printing our own ammo pretty soon. You know, let me tell you another issue that's really big. If you're a parent and you have a teenage male, and I'm saying male just because they're physically larger, because that makes a difference in this story. If you have a 17-year-old kid in your house who, now listen to this story, because if this is not your situation, just imagine it. Imagine a 17-year-old kid in your house who's using drugs and is out of control and will not take any direction from his parents. Just won't do anything his parents say. What do you do? Do you know what you do in the case where you've got a kid who simply won't do what his parents want him to do? Well, you can't kick him out of the house. It's not legal. And if you send him away to some place like a boarding school, or you send him to rehab, or you send him to military school, he can just walk out. Because you can't actually make somebody do something. If somebody is large physically, the kid actually runs the house because he's the most dangerous one in the house. So if the parents say go to bed and the 17-year-old says, fuck you, I will shoot you if you don't shut up, he can do that. And that's happening in houses all over the country. So all over the country, there are 15 to 17-year-old boys who are bigger than their parents, or if they have a single mom, they're much bigger than their mom. And when their mom says, go to the room, they say, I will slap the piss out of you if you don't shut up. Make me a sandwich. And that's actually life for probably tens of millions of families, because there is no recourse. You can call the police 100 times, and the police will say, all right, kid, are you going to stop saying those things? And the kid will say, sure, I'll stop saying those things. Absolutely. Has any crime been committed here? Nope. See you later, policeman. Thanks for stopping by. The moment the policeman gets in his car, the kid turns to the mom and says, make me a sandwich. I'm going to be out all night. Now you're saying kick him out, but you know that's illegal, right? So there are plenty of illegal solutions, but it is not legal for a parent to kick a kid out of the house. Now, in my town, I've seen it happen. I've seen parents literally kick somebody out of the house with no place to go. And those kids end up like staying with another friend and homeless and in cars and stuff. But there is no other solution. The one and only solution a parent in the United States has to deal with an unruly teen who simply won't respond to any kind of threat, and that's a lot of them, the only options you have are illegal. Think about it. The United States, has only provided for parents who just want to do a good job and stay out of trouble. The only tools they have to deal with their own unruly children are to break the law. Nothing else. And when I say break the law, I mean kick them out and refuse to feed them. It's just not legal. Every boy needs a dad who will handle it. Bullshit. 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 Fucking bullshit. All right? Nothing makes me madder than hearing somebody say that the problem is that the parent is absent or the parent isn't doing their job. If you believe that, you've never met any of these 15 to 17-year-old boys that I'm talking about. And it applies to the girls as well. But the boys are just larger, so they're more dangerous. If you believe that good parenting fixes any of the stuff that I just talked about, you are so underinformed. Parenting has no impact. The kids I'm talking about do not respond to beatings, to having everything taken away. You can lock them in their room. There's nothing you can do. Nothing. There is nothing a parent can do. You can't threaten them. You can't counsel them. You can't beat them up. You can't threaten them. You can't send them anywhere. There is no fucking solution. All right. The families that are living with one of these monsters are living in hell. They're living in hell, and they don't have a solution. The only solution would be if the state incarcerated them in some kind of non-jail situation because, the jails would be full. So they either got to be moved to the island of misbehaving teens or something. But anybody who says that they need a dad or the parents need to do something differently, totally underinformed. Now, I'll give you that that's 5% of the solution. And I'll give you that if the kid is not a bad behavior, in other words, if the kid is a good kid, then the quality of the parenting probably does make a difference. But the ones I'm talking about would not respond to any kind of threat or any kind of incentive. They are disconnected from both threats and incentive. That's why they're so dangerous. There's no legal recourse. Your only recourse is illegal. How do drugs fit this? Well, most of those kids I'm talking about are taking whatever drugs they want whenever they want. They have full access and no restrictions. Because there's just nothing you can do to keep a drug away from a kid in 2018, in the United States anyway. There's nothing you can do. If a kid has a window that opens, they get drugs. How do you know this, and where can I read about it? Well, unfortunately, I know it the hard way, because I know enough families are in that situation that it's very familiar to me. Why did they become that way in the first place, if not bad parenting? I fucking hate you for asking that question, really. I actually do. I'm not even going to hide it. I just hate you for asking that question. If it's not, somebody said, if it's not bad parenting, how do these kids get that way? DNA, mental illness, the digital companies that are making it worse, and in some cases the pharmaceutical companies that are making it worse, not just with their legal drugs, but the ones that they're, the opioids that are available behind the scenes. Wow. The fact that anybody thinks that that level of problem can be fixed by a better parent, you are the problem. All right? You are the problem. You idiots who think that better parenting fixes this, you are the problem. Because as long as you believe that, the real solutions, if there are any, are just not going to be pursued. Yeah, I'm a little triggered, if you couldn't tell. Most were traumatized before the age of 5. Nah. Don't buy it. I do not buy it. If it's true that, it's probably true that a lot of disturbed people were abused as kids. But that is also a DNA issue in all likelihood, that whatever the parents had going on got passed to the kid. So the fact that a kid gets beaten by a father and then becomes someone who beats someone, it doesn't mean that the beating caused it. It probably didn't help, but I think DNA and your natural mental state is far more important. You are too biased against parenting. I'm not biased against parenting. That doesn't even mean anything. I am in favor of the best parenting that can be done. I'm just saying there's a limit. And that if you don't think there's a limit, you're living in a hallucination. Do other countries have this problem? I'm no expert on other countries, but I will tell you that the real variables can't really be discussed because of political correctness or money. We can't really talk about mental health because the companies that are making our health bad are the big advertisers, the digital companies, and the other thing is that the school system is just a breeding ground for drug users at this point. I saw Mike Cernovich had a tweet maybe yesterday or so that he had decided to homeschool. If any of you are in the situation where you can homeschool, I would say that that's a slam dunk now. There was a time when I would have said, homeschooling? What kind of crazy crap is that? Just send them to school. The real school knows how to do this stuff. But as I've seen what happens to people who go through even a good school system, I live in a town where the school system is top rate, and they're some of the top rated schools. What happens to kids when they go through that is so devastating that it's more like sending them to prison than it is to something good. I mean, they get really damaged by school. So I would say homeschooling is just clearly the smart choice, unless you have maybe some small private school or charter school or something. All right, checking my time. I'm still good here. You're from Africa and we witnessed it all the time. I don't know which part. So somebody is saying, I'm not even going to quote your comment. Anybody who thinks that the parenting makes the difference, just consider any family you know that has more than one kid, and their fates went in different directions. And that's just about every family. So even within the family that had the same two parents forever, just look at how the kids go, one becomes a criminal, one becomes a judge. Same parenting. Same damn parenting. And you know who I have a real grudge against? So I know parents who themselves are mentally healthy. So it's two parents, they are mentally healthy. They've got, good genes, they have high IQs, and then they have children. And the children are just really good kids. Do you know what those parents say? Well, it's the parenting. It's the parenting. It's good parenting. That's why my kids are doing well in school. It's my good parenting. It's not your fucking good parenting. The good parenting matters, and you have to get that right. But good kids become good kids, right? I'm a pretty good example of upbringing not being destiny. I was raised in a very, let's say, economic disadvantaged situation in a very small town, but it didn't limit me, and none of that had to do with, my good parenting. I don't think, the parenting was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I have no complaints, but 3 kids went in 3 different directions, but we all had the same parenting. None of us are criminals, by the way, in case you wondered. Don't you think it's a copycat effect, mostly for these shootings? Yes, the copycat effect is a big deal. So, do you notice that the news is saying, guns are the problem, guns are the problem, guns are the problem, and oh, by the way, guns are the problem? Do you know what else is the problem? The people talking. Do you remember when it became a big thing for sporting events to have streakers? Streakers would run out and, they'd be naked and run across the field while it's being televised. And what did all the networks do? They stopped televising the streakers. So they just take a pause, they go to commercial break, and they come back and say, we had somebody on the field, but we took care of that. The rate of streaking, I'm guessing, I've never seen statistics on this, so fact check me on this. I'm guessing the rate of streakers went from pretty high, because it had a payoff, to not that high, because people weren't talking about it, didn't see it on television. I remember the visual is the persuasion. The more we show pictures of this kid with his gun on Instagram, the more kids want to put a picture of themselves with a gun on Instagram. We're not talking about the kids who are going to stay out of trouble. Children's development depends on many variables, as you say. So imagine, if you will, that this Florida shooting had happened and the news reported this. Just imagine this scenario. So you see the talking head on the news, and then next to the talking head you see statistics in only text. All right, let me make a suggestion. I'm going to suggest a specific law to deal with these mass shootings. It's the best idea you've ever heard and completely practical. Are you ready for it? The media can report as much as they want, but they can't show pictures. That's it. If it's a mass shooting, the media can report all the details, but it has to be verbally and with text. And they should have a self-imposed embargo on the name of the shooter. Do you want the future shooters to say, all I'm going to get is a text mention without my name? If I do this thing, I don't become the famous guy who's on the news every day for weeks and weeks. I became text. We get all the information. News reporter says, text appears on the screen next to him. There was a bad incident in a school in Florida. The parents and the local community have all been informed. They're all taking care of it. Everybody's doing what they need to do. Let's say you only put a range on the death count, and you say for the first let's say you say that for the first month, people will not mention the exact death count. You just say it's let's say it's more than one. Let's say you're allowed to say it's more than one, less than 20, something like that, some kind of range. So you want to give the public the information, but in the most boring, non-visual ways. The non-visual, that's the key. Now you tell me, now of course, you have questions of free speech and, the right to know, and if the big media outlets don't have the visuals, maybe social media will. But social media, even if it's passing around pictures of stuff like this, it's not going to have the same impact as massive news coverage, around the clock. So you forget about taking something from, something to nothing. That's hard to do. Just checking my time, making sure I'm okay. All right, tell me one reason that wouldn't work. If it's a mass shooting, you can only report it in verbal words and text, no pictures. And you can't report the details of maybe how many people died or whatever for 30 days. So in other words, you can't even have the information until it's dated. I don't see any objections, because we have some history here. As I mentioned, when the sporting events stopped televising the streakers, suddenly it was less of a thing. Don't report the shooter's name. Yeah. Or you could report it, but just in text. Don't show his picture ever, perhaps. Non-public execution. Well, I don't know about that. Here's another suggestion. In this last case, which I think was unique, this latest shooting is unique in the sense that there were so many clues that it was about to happen. Just so many clues on social media, on his past behavior, just all over the place. Could we build a system in which all of those clues would be centralized? In other words, is there some system where let's take an example. Let's say if the police are called to an unruly teen's house more than once, they put that teen's name in their database, and that database scrapes all the social media and comments about this person out and puts them in one place. So that from there on, everything this kid does on social media comes up on law enforcement's list just as a routine, make sure we're looking at him. And then you have your social media be able to identify guns, maybe from the comments. It would be easy to do, I would think. And all the teens who are showing guns on social media they should have a little special attention. I don't think that's too hard. So all I'm describing is a way to take the information that was already available in its various different sources, with everything from parents to school friends to his social media to the police reports to all those things. And as soon as you have somebody who raises a flag for, this person might be a shooter, you put them in the special database so that somebody in law enforcement is seeing everything about them for a while. Maybe you do that for 5 years, and then let it go. Access to weapons. Well, I'm going to leave you with one thought that you're going to hate. I'm pro-gun, meaning that I think people should be able to own guns under some set of restrictions. The thing that the Vegas shooting proved and the school shooting in Florida proved, and probably some other shootings proved, is that gun control works. You haven't heard that, have you? Vegas proved that gun control works, and Florida proved that gun control works. Let me tell you why. In both cases, the shooters used the best, meaning most lethal weapon that was reasonably easy to obtain. Had they obtained fully automatic weapons, which they could have done before 1986, I think, and can still do today, but they cost a lot and it might raise your visibility too much. So had they used a better weapon, fully automatic, in both cases, Vegas and the Florida shooting, the death count would have been far bigger. There you have it. Restricting access to automatic weapons probably saved a lot of lives. So if you're going to argue that gun control doesn't work, that's a tough argument, because it looks to me like everybody's using the best weapon they can get a hold of at a reasonable risk, at a reasonable cost. When you introduce friction of any kind to criminals, it does change their behavior. Not everyone. It's not going to change the terrorist who's really committed to it. But the people like this school kid, he could easily buy this gun, and so he did. He could not easily buy a fully automatic. He could not easily buy a hand grenade or a bazooka, and so he didn't. So anybody who thinks that gun control doesn't work, I think that's a settled case now. It's completely settled by these mass murders in which they're using the best easily available weapon. That's all you need to know. That doesn't mean I'm in favor of banning them all. I'm just telling you that the question of whether gun control works, I think that's settled. That's just settled. All right, I got to go get ready for Bill Mitchell, and maybe you'll see me on there. Somebody from Wyndham. Hey, Wyndham.